If you're a knitwear designer or a hand knitter, you need this. Hi, my name is Cris Bertoluci. I've been a knitter for more than 30 years and a knitwear professional since 2006, with a master's degree in textiles and fashion, and also a creative knitwear course in Brighton, UK. When I was in fashion school, I was really lucky to have an internship in a Shimasei representative in Brazil. That changed my perspective on knitting, and since then I learned so much about machine, technologies, pattern making, and everything surrounding knitwear. And I remember being very difficult to find good books and good information about knitwear and knitting design. Of course, we're talking about 2006, where like Google was starting, we just had internet, and information was just Web 1.0. And even though we have great books on the subject, the Knitwear Manual by Fashionary is a well-organized and easy-to-follow book. Like all other Fashionaries, this manual works like an encyclopedia, bringing all the information together to be easy to find with great key points and easy ways to understand the subject. Even if you are a knitwear beginner, or if you are just like an enthusiast, or if you are a professional, this book will be really, really helpful in either way. Even I found many explanations and many things I didn't know. As a knitwear designer, I think of myself being more like, I'm not aesthetic or a visual creator. I'm more into understand the technique kind of creator. So this book is like a treasure to me. This has like it all, everything you must know. So let's start. First of all, the flow chart of knitwear manufacturing. I want to make a poster of this and have it in my wall. It does explain all the step-by-step of making a knitwear garment. This is just like precious. Then we have the first chapter, and it's about fibers. I love talking about fibers. I always tell my students that the fiber is the DNA of your knitting. If you want something like more structure, you're not going to use a flowy kind of yarn, and vice versa. I think everybody, like every fashion designer, must know the characteristics of each fiber, but I think knitwear demands a lot more of this knowledge. So understanding all the fibers, the kinds of fibers, is very helpful, and the book does explain it really well. There is something about fibers that for us to understand, we really have to touch it, we have to feel it, but I do think the explanation in the book do help you to understand the kind of fiber you want to use, especially if we are shopping online. Most of things we shop nowadays, they're online. So this is really well explained. Once you read it all, you get a really good knowledge on the specifics of what you want. Then chapter 2 is about yarn. So once you don't know the DNA of the fiber, the DNA of your knitting, you must know the structure of your yarn. And that makes a lot of difference. For example, I always understand that you have the S and Z kind of twisting, and I never understood why one is different than the other. I did understand here now with this explanation. The book goes on into explaining staple and filament, how to spin each kind of yarn, their types, yarn count. Yarn count is really my weakness, especially when working with industrial design. Even though I've been working more with hand knitting, this does get me. The yarn finishings, like mercerizing, and different types of treatment like we can provide for our yarns, like antibacterial or antimicrobe. And then it shows different kinds of yarn results like boucle, chenille, tweed, and other 23 kinds of yarn. Chapter 3 is about the stitches, the knit, the purl, and then the difference between working hand knitting and machine knitting. This, I think, is very special for people who hand knit, understand how machine knitting works, especially because even though it is a great book for hand knitters, I'm a hand knitter myself. I teach hand knitters since 2011. Even though the book is more focused on machine knitting, I think this is really good, especially, for example, sometimes I see stitch in a sweater in a shop and we don't understand how to do it in hand knit. So this explanation, it helps you to understand the difference between one and another. Then chapter 4 is about knitting structures and patterns. This is what I think makes it all magical. I think it's amazing that such a simple technique, there are only like 2 stitches, knit and purl, you can create so many amazing textures and structures. Sewing is all about finding a good fabric and a good pattern and sewing it all together. But I think knitwear is more magical because we do create a pattern and a texture, and we create even color work by knitting as we are working the project. So I think it makes everything more magical. If you're a hand knitter and you have never used a knitting machine, this might be a little confusing, the terms might be different, but don't give up on the book. The visuals and the explanations might help you understand why, for example, you can't mimic a stitch or why textures are so different. At this point of the book, if you are a fashion designer trying to understand how to design a knitwear, you've done all the technicals. Then we go to chapter 5, which is what Fashionary does the best, styles. The book gives you the ideas you need to design your knitwear from shapes and stitches. I am teaching a class on knitwear illustration for Vogue Knitting Live late this October, and this will be so helpful to show students. Even though I have my method of teaching illustration, this helps a lot for people who need to illustrate even their designs, or even when like hand knitters have an open call for a magazine, this is going to help. Chapter 6 is all about dyeing, printing, and embellishing. This is a good and comprehensive way of understanding how kinds of dyes work on each fiber and the best way of choosing a printing method and embellishments. Chapter 7 is so short, but so useful. Since finishing a garment can be as important as making it. From cutting to different types of sewing, laundering can ruin your design, it can ruin your knitting, it can like shrink your knitting, or if you don't press it well, you can deform your knitting as well. So labeling, quality check, this is all in this chapter. And then this part is just amazing. Inspection lists and common faults and solutions. What is the yarn fault? What is the knitting fault? What is the dyeing? And all the solutions for all these problems. Most of the problems are reknit the sweaters, but it's good to know beforehand that we might have problems that are not solvable. And then in the end of the book, you have high resolution pictures of patterns with their respective instructions. And this is so rich, it's almost live. We feel like we're touching the texture. You feel like we're touching these patterns. If you like the book, you can shop using the link below in the description. If you like knitting and you like knitwear design, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I do have videos in Portuguese and English, but I'm bringing a lot of information for you about knitwear and especially about hand knitting. I wish you a happy knitting.